Emperor Theron raised his hand, and suddenly the air in the throne room shimmered. A hologram appeared, floating in the space between them. It showed a map of the galaxy with hundreds of star systems marked in different colors. Most were blue or green, but scattered throughout the map were red markers. Lots of them. "Do you know what those red marks represent, Dr. Carter?" the Emperor asked. Emma studied the hologram, her mind racing. The red marks were concentrated in certain areas, but they appeared in all sectors of the Empire. There were at least 40 of them, maybe more. "No, Your Majesty, I don't know. Each red mark is a location where a dragon has died in the past month. 43 deaths total, and we don't know how to stop it." Emma felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. 43 dragons dead, in just 1 month. Dragons lived for thousands of years. They were nearly impossible to kill by accident. Losing 43 in such a short time was catastrophic. "What's killing them?" she asked, forgetting protocol in her shock. Emperor Theron did not seem to mind. He waved his hand again and the hologram changed. Now it showed medical data, the kind Emma had spent years learning to read. What she saw made her blood run cold. "It's similar to what afflicted Acheron," the Emperor said, "but more aggressive. Much more aggressive. It moves faster, hits harder, and our best xenobiologists can't cure it. Traditional treatments do nothing. We've lost dragons on 12 different worlds, young ones, old ones, it doesn't matter. Once the symptoms start, they have maybe 6 hours before death." Emma stepped closer to the hologram, studying the data. The Emperor was right. The similarities to Acheron's condition were obvious. Neural cascade failure, scale darkening, convulsions. But this version was much worse. It was like comparing a candle flame to a forest fire. "How long has this been happening?" she asked. "The first case appeared 6 weeks ago. Since then, the rate has been increasing. We lost 3 dragons yesterday alone. At this rate, we'll lose hundreds more before the year ends." Emma's mind was working fast now, shifting into the analytical mode she used when solving difficult problems. "Have you found any common factors? Anything that connects the victims?" "We've looked," Emperor Theron said, and for the first time Emma heard frustration in his voice. Different ages, different worlds, different diets. Some were in captivity like Acheron. Others were wild. The only common factor is that they're all dragons. Acheron's mental voice spoke again. "We are dying, Emma Carter. My people are dying and no one can tell us why." Emma looked at the young dragon. His golden scales were bright and healthy now, but she could see fear in his ancient eyes. Dragons were not supposed to know fear. They were the most powerful creatures in the galaxy, but even power meant nothing against an invisible enemy. "Your Majesty," Emma said slowly, "you brought me here because of how I treated Acheron. You want me to find a cure for this plague." "I want you to do more than that," Emperor Theron said. He gestured and the hologram disappeared. "I am appointing you as the Imperial Head of Xenobiological Research. You will have unlimited resources, access to every research facility in the Empire, and full authority to override any protocol you deem necessary. You will save my people, Dr. Carter, both human and dragon." "This is not a request," Emma stared at him. Imperial Head of Xenobiological Research. It was one of the highest scientific positions in the entire Empire. People spent their whole careers working toward that role, and the Emperor was just giving it to her, a woman who had been fired less than 2 days ago. "Your Majesty, I'm honored, but I was terminated from my last position. My record shows that I broke regulations. Won't people question your decision?" A small smile crossed the Emperor's face. "Let them question. You saved a dragon's life by breaking rules that needed to be broken. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need right now. The old ways are killing us, Dr. Carter. We need someone who isn't afraid to try something new." He stepped closer, and his gray eyes were intense. "But I need to know. Can you do this? Can you find a cure before we lose more dragons? I'm not asking you to try. I'm asking if you can succeed." Emma thought about lying. She thought about giving him the confident answer he wanted to hear. But she had already decided that she would not lie to the Emperor no matter what. "I don't know, Your Majesty," she said honestly. "What I did for Acheron was partly luck. I had been developing that treatment for months and I happened to have it ready when he needed it. This plague is different. It's more aggressive, more complex. I can promise you that I'll work harder than I've ever worked in my life. I can promise you that I'll use every resource you give me. But I can't promise success. Science doesn't work that way." The throne room was silent. Emma wondered if she had just talked herself out of the position. But Emperor Theron was nodding slowly. That's the answer I was hoping for, he said. Anyone who promised me guaranteed success would be lying. You told me the truth, even though it might have cost you everything. That's what I need. Someone honest. He turned to one of the officials standing near the throne. Coordinator Price, please show Dr. Carter to Laboratory Complex Omega. Have her personnel requests processed immediately. She starts work today. Helen Price, the woman who had guided Emma earlier, stepped forward and bowed. Yes, Your Majesty, but Emma was not done. There was something she needed to know. Your Majesty, may I ask a question? Emperor Theron turned back to her. Of course, Dr. Palmer, my former supervisor. He was following the rules when he refused to let me treat Acheron. He was doing what he thought was right. What will happen to him? The Emperor studied her face for a moment. You're concerned about a man who fired you? A man who would have let Acheron die rather than break protocol. He was following the rules, Your Majesty. Bad rules, maybe, but rules that existed for reasons. I don't agree with what he did, but I understand why he did it. If he's punished for following protocol, then no one will know when it's safe to break the rules and when it's not. Emperor Theron was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Dr. Palmer will face no punishment, but he will be reassigned to a position with less authority. Does that satisfy you? Yes, Your Majesty. Thank you. Then go. Find me a cure, Dr. Carter. The Empire is counting on you. Emma bowed and turned to follow Helen Price. As she walked toward the massive doors, Acheron's voice touched her mind one more time. I believe in you, Emma Carter. You saved me when no one else could. You will save us all. Emma hoped he was right. Laboratory Complex Omega was unlike anything Emma had ever seen. It orbited Valoria itself, a massive structure of metal and crystal that gleamed in the light of the purple sun. The facility had everything a scientist could dream of. Advanced medical equipment, computer systems with more processing power than entire planets, and access to the Empire's complete database of dragon biology. Helen Price gave her a quick tour, showing her the main research areas, the medical wing, and the observation rooms where dragon volunteers could be studied safely. Emma's head was spinning by the time they reached her personal office. You'll have a staff of 20 researchers, Helen explained. You can choose them yourself from the Imperial database. Anyone you want from any facility in the Empire. They'll be here within a week. Emma sat down at her new desk, which was bigger than her entire apartment on Draken Prime. Through the window, she could see Valoria below, beautiful and terrifying. I need to see the medical records of all 43 dragons who died, Emma said, and I need tissue samples if any were preserved. I also need to talk to dragons who have recovered from the plague, if there are any. Helen's face fell. There are no recoveries, Dr. Carter. Every dragon who has contracted the plague has died. That's why the Emperor is so desperate. Emma felt her stomach sink. No survivors meant no data on what successful treatment would look like. She was working blind. Then get me everything else. Medical records, tissue samples, environmental data from the locations where dragons died. I need to see patterns. I'll have it all sent to you within the hour. Helen paused at the door. Dr. Carter, can I speak freely? Of course. A lot of people are going to doubt you. You're young. You were fired from your last position, and you've been given one of the most important jobs in the Empire. There will be officials who question the Emperor's judgment, scientists who resent that you were chosen instead of them. Emma nodded. She had already thought about this. I know, but the Emperor chose you for a reason. He sees something in you that others don't. Don't let the doubters slow you down. After Helen left, Emma sat alone in her office, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, dragons were dying, and she was supposed to save them. She thought about Acheron, about his golden scales and grateful eyes. She thought about the 43 dragons who had already died. She thought about the hundreds more who might die if she failed. Then she opened her computer and started working. She had no time to waste. Emma's first week as Imperial Head of Xenobiological Research felt like trying to drink from a fire hose. Data poured in from every corner of the Empire. Medical records, tissue samples, environmental reports. She spent 18 hours a day studying everything, looking for patterns that might explain why dragons were dying. She also had to build a team. The Imperial database showed thousands of qualified researchers, but Emma did not want people who were just qualified. She wanted people who could think differently. People who would question assumptions instead of just following old ideas. She chose 20 researchers over 3 days. Most were young like her. Nathan Brooks was only 28. fresh from finishing his advanced degree, but his papers on dragon neural systems were brilliant. Lisa Manning was 32 and had published groundbreaking work on consciousness in non-human species. There were others too, each one chosen because they showed creativity and courage in their research. What Emma did not choose was anyone who had worked in dragon research for more than 10 years. She needed fresh eyes, not people who were stuck in old ways of thinking. Her choices made people angry. Dr. Palmer sent her 3 messages demanding to know why she had not picked more experienced researchers. Other senior scientists complained to imperial officials. One man, Dr. Martin Cruz, sent her a long letter explaining that she was making a terrible mistake and would fail because of her arrogance. Emma deleted the letter without finishing it. She did not have time for politics. By the end of the first week, her team was assembled at Laboratory Complex Omega. Emma gathered them all in the main research area and showed them the same hologram Emperor Theron had shown her. 43 red marks. 43 dead dragons. This is what we're fighting, she told them. A plague that kills dragons in hours and has no known cure. Every dragon who has contracted it has died. That means we have no recovery data to study. We're working blind. The researchers looked scared. Good. They should be scared. Fear would keep them careful. But we do have some advantages, Emma continued. We have tissue samples from victims. We have medical records. We have unlimited resources and the full support of the Emperor. And we have something else that might be even more important. She gestured and Asheron entered the research area. The dragon had to duck his head to fit through the doors. His golden scales gleamed under the laboratory lights. Several researchers stepped back nervously. Most humans never got this close to a dragon. This is Asheron, Emma said. He survived a condition very similar to the plague. I treated him with a combination of dragon and human medical techniques. He has agreed to work with us, to help us understand dragon biology in ways that no textbook can teach. Asheron's mental voice filled the room, warm and gentle. I am here to help save my people. Ask me anything you need to know. Over the next 2 weeks, Emma and her team worked harder than any of them had ever worked before. They studied the tissue samples under microscopes. They ran computer simulations. They analyzed data until their eyes hurt and their heads ached, and they talked to Asheron. He spent hours with them every day, explaining things about dragon biology that no human had ever understood before. Dragons did not experience their bodies the same way humans did. For humans, the body and mind were separate things, but for dragons, they were connected in a way that was difficult to explain. We are thought-made flesh, Asheron tried to explain one evening. Emma and Nathan were running tests on his neural patterns while Lisa monitored his brain activity. Your species separates mind and body, Asheron continued. You think of yourselves as minds that happen to live in bodies. But for us, it is different. Our consciousness and our physical form are the same thing. We shape our bodies with our thoughts, and our bodies influence our thoughts. Does that make sense? Emma looked at the data on her screen. Actually, it does. Look at this, Nathan. His neural patterns aren't just reacting to his body's condition. They're actively influencing it. Nathan leaned closer to his own screen. That's impossible. Neural systems don't work that way. Human neural systems don't work that way, Emma corrected. But dragon neural systems apparently do. This changes everything. She stood up, her mind racing. The plague isn't just attacking their bodies. It's attacking the connection between their consciousness and their physical form. That's why traditional medicine doesn't work. We've been treating the body and ignoring the mind. Lisa looked up from her monitors. So how do we treat the mind? That was the question Emma could not answer. Not yet, but it was a start. At least now they understood what they were fighting. Meanwhile, more dragons were dying. Emma got reports every day. 3 more in the second week, 4 in the third week. Each death felt personal now. She had met dozens of dragons since arriving at Laboratory Complex Omega. They were not just research subjects anymore. They were people. Intelligent, ancient, wonderful people who were scared and dying. Emperor Theron visited the laboratory during the 4th week. Emma gave him a tour, showing him the progress they had made. It was not much. They understood the plague better now, but understanding was not the same as curing. We've developed a treatment that might slow the infection, Emma explained, showing him computer models. But it won't cure it. The best-case scenario is buying a few extra hours, maybe a day. The Emperor studied the data silently. His face showed nothing, but Emma could sense his disappointment. "Your Majesty, I know it's not enough, but we're getting closer. I just need more time." "Time is something we don't have, Dr. Carter. The plague is spreading faster now. We lost 5 dragons yesterday. 5 in one day. At this rate, we'll lose hundreds before the year ends. Maybe thousands." Emma felt sick. She had been so focused on the science that she had not fully grasped the scope of the disaster. Thousands of dragons dead. It would be the worst catastrophe the Empire had faced in centuries. "There's something else you should know," the Emperor said quietly. "We've been investigating the plague's origins. Where it came from, how it started. Our intelligence services believe it's not natural." Emma stared at him. "You mean someone created it? On purpose?" "That's what the evidence suggests. Someone designed a weapon specifically to kill dragons. A biological weapon that targets the unique connection between dragon consciousness and physical form. Whoever made it understands dragon biology better than any of our scientists." Emma felt cold rage building inside her. Someone had done this deliberately. Someone was murdering dragons not by accident or through ignorance, but through calculated cruelty. "Do you know who?" she asked. "We have suspects. A radical faction of humans who oppose the Empire's alliance with dragons. They believe humans should rule alone, without sharing power with another species. We're hunting them now, but they're well hidden." The Emperor put his hand on Emma's shoulder. It was a surprisingly gentle gesture from someone so powerful. "Find me a cure, Dr. Carter. Not just to save dragons, but to show these terrorists that their weapon has failed. That's the only way to truly defeat them." After the Emperor left, Emma stood in the laboratory for a long time, thinking. The plague was a weapon. That changed things. Weapons were designed with specific goals in mind. If she could figure out exactly what the weapon was supposed to do, she might be able to counter it. She gathered her team and told them what the Emperor had shared. Nathan looked horrified. Lisa looked angry. The others showed similar reactions, so what do we do? Nathan asked. Emma looked at each of them. "We work harder. We work smarter. And we figure this out before more dragons die." They worked through the night. Emma had a new idea, based on what she had learned from Acheron. If the plague attacked the connection between mind and body, then maybe the cure needed to strengthen that connection. Not fight the plague directly, but help dragons fight it themselves. She started developing new compounds, mixing dragon and human medical technology in ways no one had tried before. The computer simulations looked promising, but simulations were not the same as reality. On the 35th day since Emma had arrived at Valoria, she had a breakthrough. A combination of neural stabilizers and genetic therapy that, in computer models at least, could restore the mind-body connection even while the plague was attacking it. But there was a problem. A big problem. The only way to know if it really worked was to test it on a living dragon who was infected with the plague. And to do that properly, to gather enough data to refine the cure, they would need to infect a dragon on purpose. Emma called a meeting with her senior researchers. Nathan, Lisa, and 4 others gathered in her office. She explained what she needed to do and watched their faces go pale. "You want to deliberately infect a dragon with a plague that has a 100% fatality rate?" Nathan said. "That's insane. It's murder. It's necessary," Emma said firmly. "Computer models can only tell us so much. We need real-world data. We need to watch how the plague attacks a living dragon and see how our treatment responds. It's the only way." Lisa shook her head. "No dragon would volunteer for this. You're asking them to commit suicide. Then I'll explain the risks clearly and let them decide." "But someone has to do this." "We're out of options." Emma requested a meeting with all the dragons currently at the laboratory complex. 15 of them came, including Acheron. Emma Carter had been working at the Imperial Research Facility for 3 years. She loved her job even though it was not easy. Every day she studied the most amazing creatures in the galaxy. Dragons, real, living dragons that could fly through space and speak with their minds. The facility sat on a planet called Draken Prime, far from Earth. 12 dragons lived there, each one in a special chamber designed for their comfort. Emma's job was to watch them, study them, and make sure they stayed healthy. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. Dragons were the most important alien species in the entire Valorian Empire. The Empire had rules about dragons. Lots of rules. Nobody could touch a dragon without permission. Nobody could give them medicine without filling out forms. Nobody could even enter their chambers unless 3 supervisors approved it first. The rules existed because dragons were sacred. They were not just animals. They were intelligent, ancient, and powerful. Some of them were thousands of years old. Emma understood why the rules existed, but sometimes she thought they were too strict. Tonight was one of those times. She was working late in Sector 7 doing her usual evening checks. Most of her coworkers had gone home hours ago. Emma liked the quiet of the facility at night. She could focus better without people talking and machines beeping constantly. She was looking at her computer screen when she noticed something strange. The readings from Chamber 12 were normal, but something felt wrong. Emma had learned to trust her instincts over the years. She got up and walked to the observation window. Inside the chamber was Acheron, a young dragon with beautiful golden scales. He was only 200 years old, which made him practically a child in dragon terms. Emma had always liked Acheron. He was curious and friendly, always eager to communicate with the researchers. But right now, Acheron was not acting friendly. He was thrashing around in his chamber, his massive body slamming against the walls. His golden scales were turning dark around the edges like someone had painted them with black ink. Emma's heart started racing. She knew what this was. She had read about it in an old medical text from the Imperial Archives. Neural cascade failure. It was rare, deadly, and moved fast. If she did not do something right now, Acheron would be dead in less than an hour. She grabbed her communicator and called her supervisor, Dr. Gregory Palmer. He answered after 3 rings, sounding annoyed. Dr. Palmer, we have an emergency in Chamber 12. Acheron is showing signs of neural cascade failure. There was a pause. Are you certain? Yes, sir. His scales are darkening and he's having convulsions. We need to act now. Run a full diagnostic. I'll start the emergency protocol paperwork. We should have approval to intervene in about 45 minutes. Emma felt her stomach drop. Sir, he'll be dead in 45 minutes. We need to act now. Dr. Carter, you know the rules. We cannot enter a dragon's chamber without proper authorization. Continue monitoring and keep me updated. The line went dead. Emma stood there, staring at the communicator in her hand. 45 minutes. Acheron would be dead, and they would all stand around saying they had followed the rules. She made a decision. Emma ran to the medical supply room and grabbed her emergency kit. Inside were the compounds she had been working on for months. Technically, they were not approved for use. Technically, she was not supposed to be making them at all. But Emma had studied dragon biology for years, and she had an idea that might work. She ran back to Chamber 12 and typed her override code into the security panel. Warning lights started flashing immediately. The computer voice said, unauthorized access. Security has been notified. Emma did not care. She hit the final button and the door opened. Her communicator buzzed. It was Dr. Palmer, and he was shouting. Dr. Carter, what are you doing? Stand down immediately. That's an order. Emma turned off the communicator and stepped into the chamber. Acheron was huge up close. Even though he was young, he was still the size of a small building. His golden scales, usually so bright and beautiful, were half covered in spreading darkness. His massive body shook with convulsions. One of his wings hit the wall and Emma heard bones crack. She had never been this close to a dragon before. It was terrifying and amazing at the same time. She could feel the heat coming off his body. She could smell something like burning metal mixed with flowers. Emma opened her emergency kit with shaking hands. Inside were 6 syringes, each filled with a different compound. She had spent months developing this treatment, studying ancient texts and running computer simulations. The theory was simple. Dragon medicine tried to force a dragon's body to heal. Human medicine did the same thing to human bodies. But Emma's approach was different. She wanted to help the dragon's body heal itself. She grabbed the first syringe and approached Acheron's massive head. His eye was half open, unfocused. She could see the intelligence fading from it. I'm going to help you, she whispered, even though she knew he probably could not hear her. Please don't die. She found a scale that was slightly raised and injected the first compound underneath it. Then the second. Then the third. She worked quickly, her hands steady despite her fear. Behind her, she could hear people shouting. Security was coming, but she did not stop. The 6th injection went into a spot near Acheron's spine. Emma stepped back, breathing hard. Now all she could do was wait. For a moment, nothing happened. Acheron's convulsions continued. The darkness kept spreading across his scales. Emma felt tears burning her eyes. She had failed. She had broken every rule in the book, and it had not made any difference. Then Acheron's convulsions slowed. Just a little bit at first, then more. The darkness on his scales stopped spreading. Emma held her breath, afraid to hope. The dark color started to fade. It was slow, like watching ice melt, but it was definitely happening. The golden color returned, spreading from the center of each scale outward. Acheron's breathing, which had been fast and shallow, became deeper and more regular. His massive eye opened fully and focused on Emma. She gasped. Dragon eyes were like nothing else in the universe. They were intelligent, ancient, and somehow warm. Acheron looked at her, really looked at her, and Emma felt something pass between them. Understanding. Gratitude. Connection. Thank you. A voice said in her mind. Acheron's voice. It was weak but clear. You saved me. Emma started crying then, relief flooding through her body. You're welcome, she whispered. The door behind her burst open. Dr. Palmer rushed in with 3 security guards. He looked at Acheron, then at Emma, then at the empty syringes in her hand. Dr. Carter, he said, his voice cold with fury. You are terminated, effective immediately. Security, escort her out of this facility. She is never to return. Emma barely heard him. She was still looking at Acheron, at his beautiful golden scales and his grateful eyes. She had saved him. Nothing else mattered. The security guards took her arms, not roughly but firmly. They led her out of the chamber, down the hallways, past all her co-workers who had come running when the alarms went off. Everyone stared at her. Some looked shocked. Some looked angry. A few looked sympathetic. Within an hour, Emma was in her apartment with a box containing her personal belongings from her desk. Her access badge had been deactivated. Her accounts had been locked. Her career in xenobiology was over. She sat on her couch holding the box and wondered what she was going to do now. She had no job, no prospects, and a termination flag in the Imperial database that would make it almost impossible to get hired anywhere else. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Acheron's golden scales and felt the warmth of his gratitude. She had done the right thing. She would do it again, even if it cost her everything. Emma tried to talk Acheron out of it. She tried for an hour, explaining the risks in detail, telling him that there were other dragons who could volunteer, but Acheron was firm in his decision. You saved me once, he said with his mind voice. You showed me that humans and dragons can work together in new ways. Let me help you prove it again. Let me help you save our people. The procedure was scheduled for the next morning. Emma did not sleep that night. She checked her calculations 100 times. She reviewed every computer simulation. She went over the treatment protocol with Nathan and Lisa, until all 3 of them could recite it perfectly. But no matter how much she prepared, she could not shake the fear. What if she was wrong? What if her treatment did not work? She would have killed Acheron, the dragon who had trusted her, the dragon who had become her friend. At dawn, her team assembled in the medical wing. They had prepared a special chamber for the procedure, filled with monitoring equipment that would track every aspect of Acheron's biology. Emma had invited Emperor Theron to observe, thinking he deserved to see what his resources were being used for. She had not expected him to actually come, but he was there when she arrived, standing quietly in the observation room. Your Majesty, Emma said, surprised. You didn't have to come. Yes, I did, Theron said simply. If this goes wrong, I need to see it. I need to know what we're asking of our people. Acheron entered the chamber at exactly 7 in the morning. His golden scales gleamed under the bright medical lights. He looked calm, but Emma could sense his fear. Dragons might live for thousands of years, but they could still be afraid of death. Are you sure about this? Emma asked him one last time. I am sure, Acheron replied. Begin when you're ready. Emma nodded to Nathan, who held a sealed container. Inside was a tissue sample from a dragon who had died of the plague. The sample contained active virus particles preserved in a special solution. They would introduce it to Acheron's system through a controlled injection. Starting now, Emma said, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. Nathan, proceed with infection. Nathan injected the plague sample into Acheron's bloodstream. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. Acheron stood calmly, his breathing normal, his scales bright. Emma watched the monitors, seeing the virus spreading through his system at the microscopic level. Then the symptoms started. Acheron's scales began to darken at the edges, the same black spreading that Emma had seen before. His breathing became faster. His massive body started to tremble. "Neural cascade beginning," Lisa called out, watching her screens. "Brain activity is becoming erratic. The mind-body connection is starting to break down." Emma forced herself to stay calm. This was expected. They needed to let the infection progress far enough to gather good data, but not so far that it became irreversible. It was a terrible balance. Asheron's convulsions grew stronger. His mind voice, usually so clear and warm, became confused and fragmented. Emma could feel his consciousness struggling like a drowning person trying to reach the surface. "Heart rate increasing," Nathan called out, blood pressure dropping. "He's going into shock." "Not yet," Emma said. "We need more data." Another minute. That minute felt like an hour. Asheron's massive body slammed against the walls of the chamber. His scales were more than half black now. His eye, when Emma could see it through the chaos, was unfocused and frightened. "Now," Emma said. "Start treatment protocol." Her team moved with practiced precision. They had rehearsed this a dozen times. Nathan administered the first injection, a neural stabilizer designed to protect Asheron's brain. Lisa followed with a genetic therapy that would help his cells resist the virus. Emma handled the third injection herself, the most important one, a compound that would strengthen the mind-body connection. For a moment, nothing changed. Asheron continued to convulse. The black continued to spread across his scales. Emma felt her heart sinking. It was not working. She had failed. Then Asheron's convulsions slowed. Just slightly, but definitely. Emma held her breath. "Neural activity stabilizing," Lisa said, disbelief in her voice. "The mind-body connection is strengthening. It's actually working." But Emma could see it was not enough. The black was still spreading, slower now but still advancing. The plague was strong, much stronger than what had infected Asheron the first time. Her treatment was helping, but it was not winning. "We need to increase the dosage," Emma said. "Double the neural stabilizer and triple the connection enhancer." Nathan looked at her with wide eyes. "That's way beyond safe levels. It could kill him. He's dying anyway." Increase the dosage. They administered the higher doses. Emma watched the monitors, hardly daring to breathe. Asheron's vital signs were all over the place. His heart was beating too fast. His brain activity was spiking. For several terrible seconds, Emma thought she had just killed him. Then something extraordinary happened. Asheron's consciousness, which had been fading and fragmenting, suddenly surged back. Emma felt it like a wave of heat, a fierce determination that filled the entire chamber. The dragon's mind pushed back against the plague with a force that made the monitoring equipment spark. The black on his scales stopped spreading. For a moment it held steady. Then incredibly it started to fade. The golden color returned, flowing back across each scale like dawn breaking across a dark sky. Asheron's convulsions stopped. His breathing deepened and became regular. His massive eye opened, focused and clear, and looked directly at Emma. "I am still here," his mind voice said, weak but unmistakable. "You did it, Emma Carter. You saved me again." Emma nearly collapsed with relief. Around her, her team was cheering. In the observation room, she could see Emperor Theron with his hand pressed against the glass, his usually controlled face showing pure joy. But Emma's scientific mind was already working. She studied the data that had poured in during the procedure. 18 hours worth of detailed information about how the plague attacked and how her treatment countered it. It was exactly what she needed. "Get that data uploaded to the main computer immediately," she ordered. "I want full analysis running in the next hour. We're going to refine this treatment and make it perfect." Her team worked through the rest of that day and all through the night. Emma barely noticed the time passing. She was deep in the data, seeing patterns she had missed before, understanding the plague in a way she never had before. The plague was elegant in a terrible way. It was designed to attack the specific connection between dragon consciousness and physical form, the thing that made dragons unique. But now Emma understood that connection, and she knew how to protect it. By dawn of the next day, she had a refined treatment. It was simpler than the first version, more efficient, and most importantly, it worked faster. Computer simulations suggested it would stop the plague within 2 hours of infection, compared to the 6 hours it had taken to save Asheron. Over the next week, Emma's team synthesized enough of the treatment for every dragon in the Empire. It was not easy. Some of the compounds required rare materials. Some needed to be prepared in specific conditions. But with unlimited resources and 20 brilliant researchers working around the clock, they did it. The treatment was distributed to every world where dragons lived. Instructions went out to every medical facility. And then they waited. The waiting was terrible. Emma knew that more dragons would get infected. The plague was still spreading. But now for the first time, those dragons had a chance to survive. The first success came 3 days later. A dragon on a world called Karis developed symptoms and was treated immediately. 2 hours later, the dragon was healthy. No deaths, no complications, just a complete cure. More successes followed. Dragons who would have died were saved. The death rate dropped from 100% to 0. Within 2 weeks, no new deaths were reported anywhere in the Empire. The plague was not gone, not completely, but it could no longer kill. Meanwhile, Imperial intelligence had tracked down the people who created the plague. They were arrested in a hidden facility on a remote moon. Emma heard that they had been planning to release even more deadly versions of the virus. Thanks to her cure, those plans were now worthless. Emperor Theron held a ceremony to honor Emma and her team. It was held in the same throne room where Emma had first met him. What felt like a lifetime ago, but had actually been less than 2 months. The room was packed with people and dragons. Officials in fancy robes, scientists in research uniforms, and dragons of every color perched along the walls. Emma stood at the center of it all, feeling overwhelmed. Emperor Theron presented her with the Star of Valoria, a medal that gleamed like captured starlight. It was the highest civilian honor in the Empire, given to fewer than 100 people in the past 1,000 years. Dr. Emma Carter was fired from her position for breaking rules, the Emperor said, his voice carrying through the enormous chamber. But sometimes the rules are wrong. Sometimes we need people who are brave enough to look beyond what has always been done and ask what should be done. He paused, looking at Emma with those intense gray eyes. Dr. Carter saved the dragons not by following protocols, but by understanding that true science requires both knowledge and courage. She saved Acheron by trusting her instincts. She saved the Empire by trusting her team, and she did it all while never losing sight of what matters most. Emma spent the next day sitting in her small apartment, staring at her computer screen. She was looking at job postings, but her heart was not in it. Every position required a background check, and her termination flag would show up immediately. No research facility would hire someone who had been fired for breaking Imperial regulations. She had enough savings to last maybe 3 months if she was careful. After that, she would have to leave Draken Prime. Maybe go back to Earth, even though she had left that planet when she was 22 and barely remembered it. The thought made her feel hollow inside. Her computer showed 47 job postings for xenobiologists. Emma had applied to 5 of them, knowing it was pointless. 3 had already sent automated rejection letters. The other 2 would probably do the same by tomorrow. She was making herself a sandwich when her door chimed. Emma was not expecting anyone. She had not made many friends on Dracon Prime. Most of her co-workers had been polite but distant. Scientists could be like that sometimes, more comfortable with data than with people. She walked to the door and checked the security screen. Her heart nearly stopped. 2 Imperial guards stood in her hallway, wearing full ceremonial armor that gleamed like silver mirrors. The armor was ancient, passed down through generations and only worn for official business. Emma's first thought was that they had come to arrest her. Maybe breaking into Acheron's chamber was a bigger crime than she had realized. Maybe Dr. Palmer had pressed charges. She took a deep breath and opened the door. The lead guard was a woman with sharp eyes and a stern face. Her name tag read Lieutenant Karen Hughes. She looked at Emma without smiling. Dr. Emma Carter? Yes, that's me. Emma's voice came out smaller than she wanted it to. I am Lieutenant Hughes of the Imperial Guard. You are hereby summoned to appear before Emperor Theron at the Imperial Palace on Valoria. This is not optional. You will accompany us immediately. Emma felt dizzy. The Emperor. The actual Emperor wanted to see her. This was worse than she had imagined. Much worse. Am I under arrest? She managed to ask. Lieutenant Hughes's expression did not change. No, you are summoned. Please gather essential belongings. We depart in 6 hours. The guards would not tell her anything else. They stood in her living room, silent and still as statues, while Emma packed a small bag. Her hands were shaking so badly that she dropped her toothbrush twice. The trip to Valoria took 3 days. Emma traveled on an Imperial ship, something she had never experienced before. Her cabin was small but comfortable, with a window that showed the stars streaking past as they moved through hyperspace. She spent most of the journey trying not to panic. What did the Emperor want with her? Was he going to make an example of her? Show the whole empire what happened to people who broke the rules? Or maybe something had gone wrong with Acheron. Maybe her treatment had worked for a day but then failed. Maybe the dragon was dead and she was going to be charged with killing him. Emma tried to talk to Lieutenant Hughes several times, but the guard only gave short, professional answers. No, she could not tell Emma why the Emperor wanted to see her. No, she did not know anything about Acheron's condition. No, Emma was not in trouble. At least not as far as Lieutenant Hughes knew. On the third day they arrived at Valoria. Emma had seen pictures of the capital world, but nothing prepared her for the real thing. The planet was beautiful, with purple skies and silver oceans. The Imperial Palace sat on a mountain that reached above the clouds, connected to the ground by bridges that seemed to float in the air. Dragons flew everywhere. Not the controlled, monitored dragons of the research facility, but wild, free dragons of every color imaginable, red ones and blue ones and green ones. Some were small, barely bigger than the Imperial ship. Others were so huge that their shadows covered entire cities as they passed overhead. Emma pressed her face to the window, watching them. She had studied dragons for years, but she had never seen them like this. Free and magnificent and impossibly beautiful. She felt tears in her eyes and did not know why. The ship landed on a platform near the top of the palace. More guards met them, along with a woman in official robes who introduced herself as Coordinator Helen Price. She would be Emma's guide through the palace. "The Emperor will see you in 1 hour," Helen said as they walked through corridors of white stone and crystal. "You will be taken to a preparation room where you can clean up and change clothes if you wish. Then you will be escorted to the throne room." "Can you tell me why I'm here?" Emma asked for what felt like the 100th time. Helen gave her a sympathetic look. "I'm sorry, Dr. Carter. That information is above my clearance level. I can tell you that the Emperor himself requested your presence. That is extremely rare. Most people never meet the Emperor in their entire lives." The preparation room was bigger than Emma's entire apartment back on Dracon Prime. There was a bathroom with a shower that felt like standing in a warm rain. There were clothes in her size, simple but elegant. There was food on a table, though Emma's stomach was too nervous to eat much. An hour passed both too quickly and too slowly. Then the guards came for her. Lieutenant Hughes and another guard, a man named Officer Scott Bell, walked on either side of her. They moved through the palace, passing rooms and hallways that seemed to go on forever. Other people walked through the palace too. Officials in fancy robes, servants carrying things, more guards. Everyone looked at Emma as she passed. Some seemed curious, others seemed confused. Nobody smiled. Finally, they reached a set of doors so tall that Emma had to crane her neck to see the top. The doors were carved with images of dragons and humans standing together, their hands and claws raised toward the stars. It was beautiful and a little frightening. Lieutenant Hughes turned to Emma. "Remember to bow when you enter. Address the Emperor as Your Majesty at all times. Do not speak unless he asks you a question. Do not turn your back on him when you leave." Emma nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. The doors began to open, moving silently despite their massive size. The throne room was the largest space Emma had ever seen inside a building. The ceiling was so high that clouds seemed to drift near the top. The walls were lined with perches, and on every perch sat a dragon. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all watching her with their ancient, intelligent eyes. At the far end of the room, on a throne made of black stone and silver metal, sat Emperor Theron. He was younger than Emma expected, maybe in his early 40s, with gray eyes that seemed to see everything. He wore simple robes, not fancy like the officials Emma had passed in the hallways, and next to the throne, coiled protectively, was Acheron. His golden scales gleamed in the light from the high windows. He was alive. He was healthy. He looked at Emma and she felt his mind touch hers just for a moment, warm with recognition and gratitude. Emma walked forward on shaking legs. She remembered to bow. The floor seemed very far away, and for a moment she was afraid she might fall. "Rise, Dr. Carter," the Emperor said. His voice was quiet but somehow filled the entire enormous room. Emma stood up. She could feel hundreds of dragon eyes watching her. She could feel the Emperor studying her face. She wanted to run, but her legs would not move. "Do you know why you are here?" Emperor Theron asked. Emma swallowed hard. "I assume it concerns my unauthorized treatment of the dragon Acheron, Your Majesty." The Emperor leaned forward slightly. Indeed, tell me, Doctor. Do you regret what you did? Emma thought about lying. She thought about saying yes, about apologizing and begging for mercy. But when she looked at Acheron, alive and healthy, she knew she could not do it. No, Your Majesty, she said, her voice stronger than she expected. I would do it again. Acheron was dying. The protocols would have killed him while everyone waited for paperwork to be approved. A slight smile touched the Emperor's face. It was not a cruel smile, but Emma could not tell if it was friendly either. The protocols exist for a reason, Dr. Carter. Humans and dragons have very different biology. Mixing our medical technologies has caused disasters in the past. Entire research teams have died. Dragons have died. Yet you ignored centuries of carefully established guidelines because you thought you knew better. Emma felt heat rising in her face. I did not think I knew better than centuries of research, Your Majesty. I just thought the research might be incomplete. I studied those old disasters. The problem was always that researchers tried to force human solutions onto dragon biology. I did the opposite. I used dragon biology as the foundation and only added human techniques to support it. I let Acheron's own body do most of the healing. The throne room was completely silent. Emma realized she had just argued with the Emperor in front of hundreds of dragons. She was definitely going to be arrested now. Then Acheron spoke, his mental voice filling everyone's minds at once. She speaks the truth, Theron. I felt her intent when she entered my chamber. She understood something that others have missed for centuries. Humans and dragons are not meant to be kept completely separate in all things. The old ways are not always the right ways. Emperor Theron stood up. The movement was sudden, and Emma took a step back without meaning to. The Emperor descended from his throne, walking toward her. He was tall, and his gray eyes seemed to look into her soul. 300 years ago, Doctor,